All right, let's connect the GPU. I'll also connect the chocks. And I think Dreamfoil leaves the volume. No, actually, it didn't change it, it looks like. How much the weather plugin costs for Mac? Is there a? I think it's just a part of the 7.3 or 7.2.7, isn't it, Sasha?
Weather plugin. There's the 727. So there's a weather radar that they've implemented. Wow, that prop is looking mighty weird on your airplane there.
It really is. What's up with that? Oh, look at that.
Can you check the maintenance manager?
Sure. Would that be under what would that be
Under the engine, and you want to look for the feathering system.
Prop governor says broken. Shall I replace that?
Well, yeah, probably.
Okay, so the prop governor gave me a proper prop. Look at that. So was that a carryover from my previous flight?
I'm not entirely sure. The prop governor can fail if you've engaged reverse with the engine disabled, with the engine shut down. That'll actually break a cable internally in the reversing mechanism. So that might have triggered it, but I don't think you've manipulated its problem. I'm not sure, but then again, I see you've got all your lights on, that kind of stuff. You kind of left the airplane in a misconfigured state.
And it didn't remember my views either.
The views are part of X-Plane. X-Plane stores that as a file next to the ACF. Whenever you reinstall the airplane, you want to back up that file and then put it back in.
Okay, so you overwrite that. Okay.
Yeah, so when you rerun the installer, it rewrites everything in the airplane. The state configuration of the airplane, like your airframe damage and that kind of stuff, I've moved outside of the airplane folder so it doesn't get overwritten anymore. But unfortunately, I can't move X-Plane's settings for your views. That's kind of part of X-Plane itself. It's not easy to manipulate that. I might find some way to do it at some point in the future, but doing it like I'm not sure I'll be able to transmit that over easily.
Okay. I would love to have like an updater inside of X-Plane. That would be kind of nice. And then just reload the aircraft rather than rerunning the installer. But then again, the wrapper, yeah. Well, it works with like the Beechcraft 18.
So the reason why it works with certain airplanes and not with others is because certain airplanes are not written as binary code plugins. They're not basically DLLs that X-Plane loads at startup. They're done as script files. So they're like Lua scripts or Python scripts or whatever, and basically not executable code that Windows loads in directly. So for those guys, it's possible to rewrite the file while the airplane is running. There's no file locking going on, nothing. But unfortunately, because of how Windows as the operating system is designed, as soon as you load a piece of code from a file, that file becomes locked in place and you cannot move it, you cannot remove it, rename it, nothing. So we cannot go in and update the file in place while the airplane is running. You could switch over to another airplane, do the update, then come back. That's fine. Unfortunately, while the system is running, or while the airplane is running, it cannot be done because of how the operating system is designed. This isn't a problem on Mac or on Linux. It's only on Windows because of how Windows' file systems are designed. And it's a problem that carries over into so many problem areas inside of Windows.
That makes sense. I understand now. Once you said file locking and the fact that yours, yeah, I see what you're saying now. So like, for example, the A320 wouldn't be able to do that, the Ultimate, because it's written in
that one
C.
is not possible either. Yeah, it's a C++ piece of code.
Yeah.
And I see you've already started up and not consulted the checklist. Never mind.
I was just making sure it would start because of my prop governor problem. So, watch this. Generator off. Fuel cut off. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm going to leave my ignition on auto. I'm going to take my auxiliary boost pump to off. I'm going to get it all down to the cold and dark. The darkness. Oh, we can stay on the GPU though. All right, so I've got the plane the engine off, GPU connected. So where is this beautiful checklist?
Yeah, just do a quick 30-second run of the starter without putting in fuel, just to cool the engine off, because you've just shut down and the engine's going to be very, very hot. Just run the starter for 30 seconds, and then you can do whatever else you want. But it's just to make sure that you blow some cool air through the engine, and you'll see the ITT drop pretty good. And it should be below 150 C before you attempt another start, because otherwise it's going to be very, very hot on a start. There's a lot of residual heat in that metal.
Okay, so the ITT is coming down. It's about 150. Can I just go abort, or?
Yeah, you should be able to go now. Abort. There's an actual procedure also in the checklist that explains exactly how to do it, but don't worry about it. You're pretty good.
Okay. All right. I'm going to set up one more view here. All right. And then this view up here. And then a throttle quadrant view. And
I'm going to investigate if I can somehow save the view positions for you inside of the airplane rather than have X-Plane do it. So if X-Plane loses its view positions, we can go ahead and restore those for you. But yeah, I'm going to investigate that, but I can't guarantee it's going to be possible to do.
in the meantime, I just copy the preference file.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, where are these checklists?
Always the rightmost soft key on the MFD. It's always the last one as the checklist items.
Click on checklist. Oh, yeah. Okay, yep. Woohoo. I'm digging this. You can also disconnect it here for a 2D pop-up if you wanted.
And you can just either click done or enter to confirm an item. And once you're done with the checklist, the next list item at the bottom there will illuminate, and it'll just take you straight to the next checklist. So it kind of works like in a 777.
Okay. So manual override control backward.
Yeah, that's the red lever next to the throttle. That's the manual fuel control.
Okay, so we can go done on that. Throttle is cut off. Yep, check mark. Strobes. Oops. Okay, strobes on. So I can hit enter on the keyboard, is what you're saying?
Yeah, enter or the done soft key. Either one will do.
Oh, enter on the key, not the on my keyboard. Not on my keyboard.
Yep.
Okay, aux BP fuel switch is to auto.
On, not auto.
Or on, sorry, on. And then it says propeller area clear. Starter switch to on. Start timer when NG is 13% and ITT 150 Celsius. Low idle. Okay. Okay, throttle low idle. Check starter automatically off. So starters.
When NG is
Yep.
52%.
My starter's already off.
No, that's just the trigger switch. The starter actually runs when there's a cast message there that says starter.
Okay. Engine parameters. Okay, so engine parameters checked. We're just looking for temperatures, percentages, etc., pressures.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that the NG, ITT, and torque are sort of in the green, that the oil temp is fine, that the oil pressure is primarily fine, that you're not like you're not running dry on the engine.
Okay. Man, you're multitasking. You're answering people in the chat and me. I love it.
Yep. And so when the engine parameters are satisfactory, if you're on a GPU start, then go ahead and switch the source selector over to BAT.
Electrical network check. So there we're just looking for amps and volts, and that we're on the. And we're on the.
For now, all you're checking is make sure that the electrical system has not died on you. That you're currently on battery, so that's fine. Just tell once you've got the electrical system check completed, then just go ahead and disconnect the GPU. Tell basically the ground team to unhook the GPU.
Okay.
Because if they try to disconnect it while the airplane is still sort of drawing power from the plug, it could give a pretty good spark on the guy. If there's 100 amps going through a 28-volt plug, the guy tries to pull it out, there's going to be a lot of arcing internally in the contacts.
Okay. Lex Hearthstone, hello. What was W28 asking about?
He was asking about why the engine, when it was running, the prop didn't immediately go to full fine but stayed feathered, that's normal behavior for TBM. Whenever the throttle has two sides, it's like an H pattern. But whenever you're on the right-hand side, the prop is always feathered. Whenever you're on the left-hand side, the prop is always unfeathered. So there's no separate lever for prop RPM or feathering or anything. It's all built into one lever. And it's all explained in those tutorials about how to use the throttle, how to start the airplane, everything.
All right, so when ground team is clear from the propeller, okay, so flight idle. Oops, flight idle. And then we'll do parameters checked again. Aux BP fuel switch to auto. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to somehow bind a key to that enter key. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. It's somehow not unfeathering though. The engine is stayed feathered. Can you check if you have some sort of propeller lever bound or something?
I do have a propeller lever bound, but it's normally not in play on this aircraft.
Okay, strange that it's like you should be right now unfeathered.
Engine 2 says none, or engine 2 throttle, which is usually my prop lever, says none on this right now.
Do you still have the throttle on the right? No, I think I saw it move to the left.
I have it on. It did go to the left, but I have it on the right. I moved it back to the right.
Ah, okay then. Never mind. Okay.
Okay.
It's flight idle. That's not flight idle. That's high idle where you are.
Yeah.
Move it over to the left to get it into flight idle.
Okay, flight idle. And now we can go generators main and take that off the checklist. All right, and then the next page is on the next list or done? Next list, right?
So just click that item for done, and then it'll say next list right underneath checklist complete.
Okay. Okay, generator selector to main. It wants 80 amps. I do not have 80 amps.
That means less than 80 amps.
Okay, less than 80 amps. I have less than 80 amps. Okay. Thank you.
So that's what it's telling you here to do is a test for the standby alternator. Because if your main generator fails, your standby alternator is going to provide all the power that you need on the airplane. So, and the standby alternator is limited to 100 amps continuous use. So it's telling you when main load on the generator is less than 80 amps, then you can go ahead and do the standby test. Because otherwise it's just going to trip and fail over.
Okay. All right. Ninja with guitar is here. Also, Josh Gibbs. The throttle is still on the right. Oh, yeah, he saw that as well. Yep. Good morning, gentlemen. All right, so generator selector to standby. So I've got 13 amps showing. No, 10 now. So I can go ahead and click standby.
So there's two amperage bars there. There's two on top of each other. There's one has a little B in it, the other one has a G in it. So if you put the generator switch over to, so the B is the battery demand, and right now it says plus 10 amps. That means that the battery is charging at plus 10 amps. G means that the main generator is providing 43 amps of current. That means charging the battery plus another about 30 amps to do run any of the electrics inside the airplane. So your main load would be the bottom bar, the G load.
So 43 amps.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Less than 80.
Less than 80, that means we can do a standby test. So you would flick the standby switch, the generator switch over to standby. The bottom bar will then change from a G to an S, telling you that the standby alternator has picked up the load, and you want to make sure that you don't get an undervolt, that you don't get a drop from like 40 amps down to 0 or something, or that the battery has not stopped charging, basically, to make sure that, okay, the standby alternator is functional. So if there's an emergency, you're going to be able to rely on it. Because if the main generator goes out and the standby is dead, then you're on battery power and you've got maybe a half-hour flight left in the airplane.
Okay. All right, so it's showing 42 amps on the standby.
Perfect. So it's fine. 1 or 2 amps of delta is basically nothing. Like, the battery is still finishing up its charging process, so it's going to keep on dropping. So as the battery charge goes down to 0, obviously the generator load is also going to be going down to just pure the avionics and the systems on the airplane.
Okay, generator on main. AP trim tab on. Oxygen supply checked. I'm gonna.
This is currently not simulated, so feel free to go ahead and skip that one.
Okay. I do need to set my LFE though, so I'll have to remember to do that. Oh, it has it down there in the checklist.
Yep. So oxygen supply, normally what you would do is you would have on the overhead, you would have a pair of switches. First of all, you turn on the pilot oxygen to make sure that the supply to the masks is on. And then also you would test, make sure that the oxygen PSI meter on the MFD is shown not 0. Right now it's shown 0 because the oxygen system is not simulated. I'm basically waiting for on the interior to finish up the oxygen system. But then it's going to basically read a value there. And the value is going to go down, and you're going to have to refill the oxygen at regular intervals.
Where on the overhead is it going to have those?
It's going to be roughly in line with the crash bar. It's going to be about maybe 5 inches back from the crash bar, just right on top of it's pretty much right over your head, or in between the heads of the front 2 seats is where the oxygen supply switches are. And then every seat has an oxygen mask next to it.
Okay. W28 says 1 amp display change could be only 0.5 amps change in real terms. Yeah, he was saying it was the delta. Gabba J, how are you doing? All right, so oxygen supply, we'll skip that. So you
don't have to concern yourself too much with them. Like, plus or minus a couple of amps, it doesn't really matter. These ammeters are nowhere near, scientifically accurate. They're not meant to be. They're supposed to show you trends primarily.
And you're referring to the real plane as well as the sim, right? Trends or
okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
Like, these systems, the electrical fluctuations that go on inside of these systems are so large that a couple of amps don't really mean anything.
Okay.
That's why every sort of sensitive piece of electronics has a input stabilizer in it to make sure that things not going crazy. By the way, correct your rudder trim, but don't worry about it. So it's later on in the checklist.
All right, display backup button. I remember this being over here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, does that take me back to where I left off? It does, doesn't it? Oh,
Yes.
beautiful. Thank you. Bleed switch to auto. Checked. AC switch to auto. Checked. Pressure mode switch. Auto.
Precisely.
Control selector as
That'll be
required.
That's all on the ECS panel. That's just making sure that you've got the control selector is from where the cabin temperature is controlled, either from the cockpit or from the cabin. Just, that doesn't really make a difference for you.
Okay.
It's in the temperature slash degree C section there, right beneath the bleed switch. It's two concentric knobs, and the bottom one controls where the temperature is controlled from, either from the cockpit or from the cabin.
Oh, so you can let the passengers decide.
Yeah, so that basically, in real life, what it does is it switches the airplane into dual zone AC control. So if you have it over in cockpit, all zones are controlled from the cockpit. If you have it over in cabin, then cockpit controls its own temperature, and there's a second temperature control back in the cabin that controls its own zone.
Okay.
But obviously, in a simulator, that makes very little difference to you.
Hot airflow distributor.
Yeah, that's to the right of the temperature control. It controls where the hot air from the engine bleed is blowing. You can have it either in the footwell, or you can have it over on defrost.
Okay.
Or you can basically select any mixture of the two. Like, we don't have it simulated like with the right sound internally, but if you turn the thing in the real plane, you can sort of feel like it's adjusting a mechanical valve inside. Like, you can feel it's going through a cable into a valve, and like on many of these old cars where you had, if you remember, where you had like a temperature mixer control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you moved it, you could hear the valve internally move and sort of creak and make sounds. This is exactly what it does in the real plane as well.
Standby instruments. I'll just set this.
And a standby instrument is just checking to make sure that the instrument is there, that it's aligned, that it's not broken or anything, thing's not dead, basically.
Just set my barrels. Okay, standby is checked. LFE selection. It's hard to do this with the checklist up, but
Well, just hit exit and
it'll remember where I am. Okay.
Yep.
So we'll do FMS LFE. Oh, it doesn't know where I'm going. So it's not.
Well, that's why there was a line in the checklist that's out: flight plan prepared.
Okay. So we'll set that after we do our flight plans. So checklist, LFE selection. We'll just say it's done for now, even though it's not. Actually, our old flight plan is in there. Okay, altimeter setting is checked. Go ahead.
You can unselect an item by just hitting enter again on it, and it'll unhighlight it to basically remind you that there's still stuff that you want to do if you want to skip some items. Or if you want to mark that you're not going to do an item at all, then just hit the override button on the MFD soft key line there, and it'll put a red mark on it, basically tell you that I don't care about this one.
How do I get back up to the LFE selection?
Outer FMS knob.
Okay.
The same as everything in Garmin. Outer FMS knobs moves between fields. Inner FMS knobs moves within a field or changes the value in a field.
Okay. Why is my rudder trim so out of whack?
I don't know. It's wherever you left it. If you landed with the yaw damper on, then the yaw damper can take the rudder trim over, like, into oblivion. That's why it says not to land with a yaw damper on.
That makes sense.
See, what the yaw damper is doing, all it does is basically detect that the airplane is yawing, even though it is not banked, so it shouldn't be yawing. So it detects that, okay, obviously something's wrong with the flight path, so I got to correct it with rudder. And if the slip skid indicator is out of whack, it also tries to put the rudder back over into it to prevent a slip or a skid. But obviously, when you're turning on the ground, you're never really banking or anything. You always are sort of like feeling side forces, and it's basically, it thinks that it's doing a slip or skid, so it tries to play around with the rudder trim pretty hard to get it to align. That's why you're never really supposed to use a yaw damper on the ground, because it'll basically push against you on the pedals and make steering very, very hard.
Yes, now I completely have a inside more of a understanding of why when Max turned off his autopilot when we were on approach, he would go yaw damper off. Yep.
Yeah, if you left the yaw damper on, it would basically, and there was a crosswind, and Max was trying to basically counter control or cross control. There you selectively induce a cross control slip skid kind of situation, and the yaw damper is just going to freak out and think like, oh my god, the airplane is like trying to go sideways. So it'll push against you on the pedals, and you feel that as a constant pressure fighting against you, and it'll make the crosswind landing very, very interesting for sure.
Makes sense.
It might even take you on a bit of a sightseeing tour of the countryside.
Bam Mike Foxtrot, good morning or evening. Hello to Wolfie2671. No, this has not been released yet. Aviator Crafty, hello. He's saying the SVT, that's awesome. Yep. All right.
Synthetic vision.
Yeah, the synthetic vision is really cool. I finally got it going. It gets even better when you're on an approach. I love it. Okay, so de-ice systems panel.
Yeah, there normally you keep basically everything off except for the inertial separator until you're ready to take off. So even the pitot heats, you would have those off during taxi.
Okay.
It is going to give you a little caution message about the pitot heats being off. That's fine. Ignore those for now. They're not critical.
Okay.
You just want to turn those on before you take off. The reason why you don't want to have them on is because with pitot heat on and the airplane's not moving, there's not a lot of cooling air going over the pitos, so the pitos get extremely, extremely hot.
All right, so is this the last of the checklist so far?
Well, for now, yeah, you want to enter your flight plan and complete the LFE selection.
Because I don't have a next list, even though I'm done.
That's because you haven't completed LFE selection. There is still unchecked.
Ah. So if I checked that, it would go to the next one.
Yes. Or you can override it. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, we talked about that. So I'm going to take the outer FMS knob, go back up to there, and I'm going to click override. And then I'm going to say done, but there is no next list still. Oh, wait, the altimeter setting went back off. There we go. Now there's still no next list.
It should allow... Oh, it might be a bug. I might have to do it so that you can advance to the next list even if an item's overridden. Never mind. Take the FMS knob, scroll all the way up until it highlights the checklist line at the top, and just use the inner FMS knob to select the next list on that drop menu there. So just take it up all the way and highlight the line that says checklist after starting engine, and then use the inner FMS knob to change lists.
Perfect. So taxiing. All right. So
yep.
All right. This is okay. We're not ready to do this, but I'm going to exit out, and I'm going to do a flight plan. All right. That makes sense. All right. See, even as a little tiny John Fly, we were able to identify a small thing that Todorico will, I'm sure, change.
And I merely forgot about it. I thought I'd made it so that you could, even with overridden items, you could advance to the next list. Apparently, I forgot to put that into condition. So, yeah, it's going to be put in there shortly.
Menu, delete the flight plan. All right, so Scotty P, are you still here? KTVC, where are we? We're in Michigan. It's weird that on ForeFlight, there's a Cessna that follows me around on ForeFlight, November 172 SP. Must be AI aircraft. Okay, Traverse City, we can fly up to... Well, we can fly down to Lansing. Yeah, that'll work. Yep, he is doing amazing stuff. Toto definitely is. Aviator Crafty says, I saw some YouTube video where someone tech savvy with X-Plane was developing a basic SVT-like thing for testing back in version 10 or something. Was it developed using snapshots of scenery, or was it developed with a database? So, Toto answered there. Yep, the database built from X-Plane scenery files as the back end. Yeah. Okay, outer knob. I'm going to use the keypad. And by the way, folks, you can detach this keypad. Boop, like that. Isn't that fun? K L A N. Hold on. K L. Oh, that didn't work. K L. That was interesting. On the external keypad, it was not working correctly. There we go. KLAN. Alright, now we can go back to get rid of flight plan, system FMS LFE, and that sets the field elevation for Lansing, so that's good. Then we can go back to our checklist. Taxi light on. Passenger briefing as required. Park brake is checked. Yep. Nose wheel steering, all that good stuff. Throttle checked. CAS LFE checked. Yep. Next list. Before takeoff. That's before takeoff though. So we're able to taxi now. What kind of FPS are you getting? I'm getting 33 frames right now. And I have pretty high settings, so.
And 4K.
And 4K. Yes. I'm also going to go into the taxi range. So I actually toggle my reversers to get into the taxi range. Yep, and now it's 34 frames, 35. Yeah, I'm running 4K resolution, so. And I'm running SkyMax Pro Clouds. So yeah.
FS Economy Auto Login.
Yeah, basically the avionics is written in such a way that pretty much nothing is done directly on the rendering thread. Everything that is processing intensive is being done in background threads in the airplane, so your frames should primarily be driven by the performance of the GPU, or at least like how quickly X-Plane can render the outer scenery. Like the internal avionics of the airplane are supposed to be essentially no FPS draw or next to it.
Oop, a little aggressive on my taxi. All right, wind is 6 knots at 30. All right, we'll take off 28. I think it changed liveries on me. I may have accidentally done that. can't be more stocked for this aircraft, yeah. Or stoked, either one. Okay, so is the oxygen system that you plan on implementing that after the cabin interior is completed, will the oxygen system be a part of the release then?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Really, the oxygen system is only in this airplane. It's not like in an unpressurized airplane where you have to, if you use it, you got to refill it all the time. In this airplane, it's only basically going to drain whenever you have a cabin pressure loss and you put the oxygen masks on, or over time, basically all oxygen systems sort of slowly lose pressure. So maybe once a year, or maybe a couple of times a year, you got to refill it. But other than that, it's pretty low maintenance. It's really there's just an emergency system because you're flying high up in the flight level, so you got to have an oxygen backup.
Okay. Scotty says KTVC is where he did his flight training. I did miss that, Scotty. That's cool. Hopefully this resembles it a little bit at least. All right, hold down the brakes, then you can toggle the park brake. Yep. Which you're going to get support calls on, even though there's tutorials and warnings and everything. You're still going to get support calls on it. I can't set the parking brake. All right, parking brake is on. Throttle is flight idle. Done ski. Throttle feather twice. All right, so how would I do this feather twice thing?
Just pull it over to the right. Wait a little, pull it back over to the left. It'll unfeather. The right-hand side of the throttle is feathered, so it's very simple.
You know what's interesting is when I went over to the right, it immediately went to go down to low idle, and I don't know why.
You held it down for too long. Just flick it over there and let go of the mouse.
Okay, good call. All right. Feathers done. Flaps to take off. De-ice panel. We could put our pitot heats on here.
Yep, now's the time for them.
I'm surprised that's not in the checklist. I mean, it is, but it doesn't say specifically.
It isn't? Oh, well, yeah, it should probably be there. I'm gonna check. These lists are, as far as possible, copied over straight from the POH.
That's what I'm saying. I'm critiquing their system, not what you did. But I mean, de-ice system does say pitot, but not directly. But
so the lists are sort of copied as close as possible. But there are certain things that I've left out or like reorganized from the checklist, especially in the emergency sections, not so much in the normal sections.
all right, flight controls. Checked. Trims are set. Passenger belts checked. Passenger table is stowed. Strobe switch on. Huh, that's interesting because my strobes was already on from the prior checklist.
So the strobes in the TBM frequently double as the sort of, hey, watch out, I'm gonna be starting the engine. So many people turn them off just for engine start and turn them off because they're pretty bright. So they're just there to let everybody know that the engine is about to start.
Should you turn the strobe switch off or put the strobe switch off after engine start in the checklist?
No. So the checklist does not specify. The manufacturer does not force you to do it, but it's common courtesy, especially at night, not to run the high-intensity strobe on the ground.
Okay. All right, the CAS is showing park brake, inertial separator, and also auto select. So that's CAS is checked.
So no, hang on. There's.
Oh, back up.
It says there all messages off except for inert sep and ignition if used. So that tells you that something is wrong. Parking brake is fine, we know, because you've got the parking brake engaged. That's fine. But auto cell is not supposed to be there. That tells us that something's not right. That means the fuel auto selector is disabled. It's on the overhead. in the fuel panel.
Do you see how I left that off on purpose just to see if it would catch it? Just kidding. This is why we use checklists.
Yeah, and once you've used the checklist a couple of times, it actually gets very, very quick. You sort of learn the flow, and then you just go boom, 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 straight through the checklist, 30 seconds, and you're done.
Yeah. I really want a keystroke for it. For the done button.
It's very easy to assign. You can do it right now if you want to.
Please. So if I go to keyboard,
yeah,
and
so
search for command like enter.
You want to look for, yeah, just look for enter or ent. ENT should just find it, and it's supposed to say like G1000 third screen enter or something like that.
Yeah, G1000 pilot enter or MFD. It'd be MFD enter.
Yeah, MFD enter is the one you want.
Now, what button do I want this to be? No, I don't want it to be that one. I want to, we'll just E. E is bound to rotate view pan right. That's fine. All right, so fuel, gauges, quantity. How much fuel do we have? Not much.
Yeah, it always tells you to check for quantity and symmetry.
Can I change the fuel in the menu, or do I do that in X-Plane now?
You can do it in either. Normally, I prefer to use the payload manager that I've written because that one actually understands how to distribute the load properly.
Do I have to turn it off to reload it?
No, well, for payload, yeah, but not for fuel. For fuel, you can just open the caps and have it refill anytime you want. Just be sure to put the caps back on, otherwise you might leak fuel.
Haha, that's cool. I had never done this before. I always let FS Economy handle this portion of stuff.
Yeah, and it'll actually, if you look with the fuel caps open, if you look on the wing, you'll see that they're still open.
All right. They shouldn't be now, though, right?
Yeah, when you close them up, obviously they're not going to be there. But if you leave them open and just close the window down, you're going to see that the caps are open on the wing.
Haha, that's cool.
And I'm trying to petition Goran to give me an animation there, to make them tumble, sort of in the wind.
Shake.
They're on a piece of string. They're not going to fly off, but they're gonna bang around pretty good if you're flying with them open. And Bretsan has war stories about how many fuel caps they've had to purchase because on the Caravan they're not tethered to the wing, so if the pilot forgets to put them on after refueling, they just start up and walk away, like fly away with them. Fuel cap's gonna stay wherever the airplane was.
All right, I'm gonna try my new key. E. Yep, gauges, symmetry, aux BP switch to auto. Checked. Flight instruments. Checked. Altimeter setting. Checked. LFE. Checked. 859 at Lansing. Takeoff distances checked. Rotate speed. How would I check rotation speed VR?
That's just for establishing it inside of your head. You know what the rotation speed is going to be. Are we going to rotate 85, 90, 95 knots? You know, pick a number and just memorize that. That means that you've done your performance for takeoff. So you check your takeoff distance and then you check whether you know what speed you want to rotate at.
All right. Rotation
Normally,
speed
I'd
set.
recommend 90 to 95 knots, and this thing is perfect.
90 will be my new go-to. Engine instruments checked. Battery charge, less than 50 amps. Yeah, battery's showing 0 amps right now. Generator's 35. Do not take off if battery less than 50 amps.
Greater than 50 amps, yeah.
Or greater than 50 amps.
Yeah, that basically tells you that the battery is very discharged. Some people, when they go really, really quickly through the pre-flight, then they've got a drained battery. Battery can be charging at 80, 90, 100 amps still if they, a couple of minutes after the engine just started. When you're proficient with the airplane, you're just gonna be able to do the startup and taxi out takeoff in a couple of minutes. So for those people, it tells them to basically wait for the battery to be sufficiently charged that if you have a complete electrical failure on startup or on takeoff, you still got maybe a half hour left in the battery for your instruments to be working. Because if the battery is very significantly discharged and you lose the electrical system, and you just relying on battery, if the battery goes out after 5 minutes and it's night, you're pretty much toast. Like you've got no lights. Like
Hmm.
the only instrument that you've got at that point is the standby instrument, and that's not really going to do you much very good if you lose all the external lights, all radios, everything, and you're in IMC. Like at that point, you pretty much toast.
Hmm.
Real to
Yeah.
sim, I did check. It's over 80. It's greater than 50 amps. I mean, John Fly, feel free to look at the previous checklist to make sure that I wrote it right.
Let's see here. So if I go, I have to scroll back up to the checklist, enter knob back to before takeoff, and enter. It says it's got the arrow pointing to the left.
Yeah, do not take off a battery charge is greater than. That's what that means. So it says no. So there's a checklist item: battery charge less than 50 amps. Check. Caution: do not take off if battery charge is more than 50 amps, plus or minus 4. Yeah, on the checkboxes, it is supposed to say less than 50 amps because you want to confirm that it is less than 50 amps.
People just see that the alligator's mouth is pointing at 50, so they think this is more. But what's missing is the digit before the more, so it is less than.
Yeah, that literally, if you look on HTML or like that symbol is literally named ampersand LT for less than.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, next list. All right, so climb speed is 124 knots. Set speed 124.
Speed 124 knots.
Trims, pitch, roll, yaw. Yep, that's all. Check. Yaw damper.
So that's for this checklist you would do only in climb. That's why the first line of the checklist says only
124
when flaps are
knots.
confirmed up.
Yeah.
So
That's
climb checklist is after you take off.
yeah, which you really don't want to be doing as you take off. You don't want to be messing around with the checklist.
Well, that's why it says only when flaps are confirmed up, then do the
No,
checklist.
but to me as a pilot, I'm probably not going to be going through this checklist after flaps are up even. I'm just not going to be messing around. I'm going to be looking for traffic in the pattern. I'm going to be flying the aircraft, doing ATC. I'm not going to be doing a checklist. I'm just saying for me in the real world, I wouldn't be doing that. Do you know what I'm saying?
So yes and no. In the real world, you got to learn to multitask. So, you gotta be able to do everything, all these things at the same time. So yes, you'll have basically a set procedure. You take off, gear up, flaps up, yaw damper on, and then once you're basically clear of the immediate vicinity and you've sort of got a little bit of time, you've made your radio calls, then you go and confirm everything you've done through the checklist. And by the way, for takeoff, normally I'd recommend for guidance mode pushing the toga button on the throttle. That'll give you wings level 10 degrees up.
Toga on the throttle?
Yeah, there's a little dimple on the left-hand side of the throttle lever.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yep. Let me line up here and I'll go to that. Look at that synthetic vision. You know, what I was saying is I would definitely go to this checklist once I was like stabilized, maybe even an autopilot, on a climb, cleared to the next waypoint, everything's out of the way, and then I'd quickly go through and just check off each one of those, yeah. But I'm not going to be doing it after flaps up, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's
right after
flaps up. It's called a climb checklist. It's not a during takeoff. It means climb comes after takeoff.
You should do the procedure and then do the checklist. Yeah, that's exactly what I do, but I'm just saying it'd be probably more in the how shall we say?
Now, so what Patoin is describing is more like how airlines operate. Airlines operate, their procedures are somewhat different. You have to understand here we're dealing with a single pilot who's not a professional and who doesn't have SOPs. There's no SOPs on a TBM because you're not a commercial operator. You're not establishing standard operating procedure documents that are approved by your civil aviation authority and that kind of stuff. So instead, the checklists here are sort of more similar to a combination of procedure and checklist. So it does tell you what to check, and it also does tell you what to do. In airline environments, checklists are very, very different. They're much shorter because there the pilots are trained using a standard operating procedure, an approved standard operating procedure manual, and they have a fixed scan pattern, and the checklist is just to confirm that you've done everything that's on this, or you've done actually not everything, but they are just checking to make sure that you've done the critical parts of that scan pattern. It is up to your training to know what's part of that scan pattern. Now here in the TBM, there is no SOP because there is no airline that operates a TBM. So it is, the checklist sort of has to deal with the fact that we don't have professional pilots, and our pilots are not quite so highly trained. So we have to sort of help them along a little bit, you know, hold a hand a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't saying I'm not going to do it. I'm just saying I'm not going to do it after I raise flaps. It's going to be probably a minute, 2, 3, 4 before I go back to the checklist, before I get stabilized in my multitasking.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So even with airlines, they do the climb or after takeoff checklist only once flaps are up, gear up, and basically the airplane's cleaned up and in stable climb.
So what you're saying is, hit that toga button. What does that do?
It gives you. It doesn't actuate the throttle. It only gives you flight director guidance on the PFD. It gives you wings level, 10 degrees nose up. You just fly the airplane into that V-bar, and it'll give you basically a standard climb sort of performance kind of deal. So just
to the magenta. Okay.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right, let's go. Oops, over-torqued it. Bring it back. Bumpy runway. There's 90 knots. We're going to pitch for that magenta. Gears coming up. At what point would you raise your flaps? Remind me.
115 knots. And
okay.
600
flaps
feet
coming
above.
up. Or 600 feet above. Okay. Not quite.
Well, basically sufficient ground below you that if you have an engine failure, you're not immediately. You don't worry about descending immediately.
Yeah. I got chewed out the other day for doing too many external views on takeoff. So the gentleman was correct. Is that it's the most important part of the second most important part of being in the cockpit is during takeoff and landing for the first and second, right? So I shouldn't be doing these external views, but I kind of have an obsession with them. I just want to see it, because how often can you get a drone view like that?
Oh yeah, and the sound. Well, you wouldn't know anything about that, but if you had sound.
Yeah, my sound's down right now. My sound's down sometimes for takeoff. I do have my sound on, but when I have a guest star that I'm listening to their voice, I'd rather listen to their voice. But yes, the sounds are brilliant. All right, so I'm going to get to a situation where I can engage the autopilot, and then I can go through my checklist.
Yeah, and it's also common when you put the flaps up at the same time you turn on the yaw damper. That then takes care of all the all the rudder trimming for you, so you don't have to worry about it anymore.
That makes sense. All right, so yaw damper, lights. I don't want to do lights off yet because I'm still at 4,000 feet.
You're not a Part 121 operator. You can go lights off after takeoff immediately.
But doesn't it help with the visibility? But probably not during the day, huh?
It is recommended, but it is not required. In fact, you, as a Part 121 as a non-Part 121 operator, I think you can take off without landing lights on completely, except for nighttime. But you're not required to have landing lights at all.
Okay. Okay,
Now,
that's
here's
checked.
a trick to the autopilot panel, by the way. Many people look at the autopilot panel and try and intuit what the autopilot's doing from there. That is entirely the wrong place to look. What you want to look on is the PFD. Just above the little bank indicator, there's a line of text. It says right now GPS, AP, YD, TO. That's what the autopilot's actually doing. So it says that you are, and it's separated out. On the left-hand side, you have what are called the roll modes, basically the direction you fly. And on the right-hand side, you have what are called the pitch modes, or the pitch attitude the airplane's flying. So right now, it says that it's flying GPS guidance for roll. So it's basically trying to steer the airplane to follow your pre-programmed flight path, and flight level change to 137 knots, and altitude select is armed, meaning that once it reaches the pre-selected altitude, it'll level off. Now, right now, your pre-selected altitude is 0. So it's trying to descend, even though you've got too much power in. So you want to change your pre-selected altitude to make it a climb rather than a descent. So change the pre-selection altitude first. So whenever you're unsure about what the airplane is doing, always just have a look on the indicators there. That's what the autopilot actually wants to do. And the logic for colors there is green means it's engaged, white means it's armed, that given appropriate conditions, the mode is going to engage. So right now, flight level change 160 means we are currently in mode flight level change to 160 knots. And Alt S means as soon as we reach 9,000 feet, we're going to hold the altitude.
I can't believe how amazing this plane is. I was telling people yesterday, Sasha, that this is going to be the #1 GA aircraft in X-Plane. No, without a doubt.
Well, I hope people are going to have fun with it. I don't really work in terms of comparisons. Right now, by the way, will be a good time to do your climb checklist. So you've cleaned up, you're pretty much stabilized. It's actually quite late to be doing the climb checklist at this point, but to each their own. Many airlines, for example, recommend a climb checklist be complete by 3,000 feet AGL, but it's up to you. You're not.
Yeah. ECS panel temps selectors adjust. Yep, that's good. Fuel tank gauges checked. DI system as required. I turned off my inertial SEP, and we go next list. This is the cruise checklist, which we're actually at cruise. Brilliant. Pressurization. I'm looking for what am I looking for? Differential. Green.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that your cabin is not too high. You're not climbing and descending the cabin when you don't want to be. By the way, the white text there is not just for filler. You're actually supposed to read that, make sure you understand what it means. So that's why it says throttle adjust, caution observe the appropriate limitations when you set the throttle so you don't over temp it or over torque it. Same thing on the previous checklist when it says fuel gauges check. You want to check for quantity and symmetry. So for example, when you complete your climb or when you start your cruise, you want to make sure that you've reached a fuel state which you have planned for. You're going to be at cruise, so that you don't, for example, you detect a fuel leak early. That can also happen.
I loved that phrase. By the way, John, The white text is not just filler. Actually read the text, John. I loved that.
Well,
So,
it is
yeah.
sort of filler. It's sort of the filler that gives context to the actual checklist items.
Yeah. All right, so we adjusted the throttle. We want to observe torque and GMP, ITT temperatures, oil pressures, everything. Okay. Pressurization is checked. Gauges, okay, yep, you talked about that. Tank automatic. Yeah, tank's on automatic. Consumption, fuel flow. De-ice system as required, yep. And then the next one is the descent checklist. Okay. Now, I can't, I'm going to go exit on here. I do have weather radar on this, don't I?
You need. It's under, so on the main page here, when you move the inner FMS knob, it changes between sub pages. One of them is weather radar.
TAWS
inner
system. Yeah.
And don't freak out if it takes about 10 seconds for it to start up. The weather radar does go through an initial boot sequence. Fortunately, we're simulating the GWX-70, the solid state radar, so the startup is pretty quick. It's just basically the electronics firing up. Whereas the GWX-68, which people like, if you watch Steve-O's videos, I think he has the GWX-68, which would be the magnetron version. There it takes about a minute and a half. So that's why if you've seen many of his videos, when he goes into some weather, he's like, okay, we're gonna start the weather radar warming up before he takes off or before he enters a cloud, because it takes him a fair amount of time for the magnetron to actually start emitting your electronicsy electrons.
So it's emitting electrons in order to detect.
Well, no, I'm just kidding. That's how a tube works, right? That's how how a ray tube works. So it's basically the magnetron has to warm up.
Whereas solid state, just boom.
Yeah, pretty much boom. Yeah, it's the 10 seconds is basically just to slave the antenna, test out the servo motors, and make the internal electronics to boot up and do a kind of basic self-test.
Yeah. All right, so what this would be detecting probably by now is if we had precip, right?
Yeah, you don't have much precip at all. Like, it'll take a fair amount of precip for this to detect. Sometimes you can help it along by, boosting the gain, but right now I'm not even seeing any droplets on your windshield, so this looks like pretty low precip cloud.
Yep. Okay.
Vertical scan mode, by the way, that is for where the antenna, that's why we're a little bit of lit up to vertical and horizontal at the same time. That means it waits for the antenna to slave back to the center of the screen, and then it's going to start scanning up and down rather than side to side.
It uses unicorn magic, says B2. That could be the case, yeah.
Yeah, plus I'm not really sure that SkyMax Pro renders the clouds in the same position as X-Plane thinks there's precip, so it's really pretty good. With SkyMax Pro, I'm not really sure it's going to work so well for putting exactly the precip wherever the clouds are, but we're detecting wherever X-plane thinks that precipitation should be.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but I think my SkyMax Pro is using X-Plane's engine, and that real weather connector is injecting that same information, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, you can easily test if the weather radar is working by just take down the range to maybe 10 miles and just point it straight down. Take the little range joystick that's on the keypad and just pull it down so that it like tilts the radar all the way down, 15 degrees down, and you should be seeing plenty of ground returns. Then you know for sure that okay, the weather radar is working. It's just there's nothing to look at.
Oh, we got some radar return. Yep, we got radar return. I'm assuming that is...
Oh, you're in vertical scan mode right now, so it's tilting up and down. That's why it's sort of sideways on. If you could put it back to horizontal mode, then the radar beam is going to return back to center and then start scanning left to right.
Okay, we got a subscribe. We got a subscribe. Richie D subbing up. Thank you, Richie D. I do appreciate the support. I hope you're doing well, sir. All right, so you said to use the tilt for the...
Yeah, so take the range down on the radar a little bit lower. Take it down to maybe 10 miles.
All right, 10 miles right there. Okay.
Yeah, and just the little joystick there, that's basically the range control is also a tilting joystick.
So I'm going to go down. Okay.
Push it down, yeah, and you'll see that the tilt indication there on the legend of the radar is going to be showing down something degrees. So just hold it down until it reads down 15.
Oh yeah, there's the returns. Okay. We do have a subscribe. Richie D with the tune. Hope you're well, sir. I haven't talked to you for a while. So the weather radar actually detecting the rain in the sim. Yes, Matt Cat. Yep. Will it basically map the rain to where the stock map shows it to be? Yeah, I think that's what he said. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. That's basically where we're using the same data for that.
I could turn some on right now.
Feel free to go ahead. Just make sure that the tilt is back up to 0 so that you're not looking at the ground when you've got, thunderstorms ahead of you.
All right, weather radar is back to... Oops.
I mean, I don't have to tell you. You're well versed in electronics, but you know that the radar is basically like a spotlight.
What should I normally have it on? Like 20 miles? Do you think?
So weather radar beyond 40 miles tends to be pretty inaccurate. So usually people use it for 40 and less to like pick their way through some buildups.
Will your radar detect autogen, do you think?
It won't detect buildings, no.
In the real world it would, though.
Yes, in the real world it would, yeah.
All right, let's throw in some...
screen to pick them out. That would have to be a pretty big building to be able to pick it out from the ground clutter, but yeah, you would be able to see those. Remember though that this is not a, it's not a missile guidance radar. It's not supposed to be very high accuracy. It's supposed to show you something the size of a cloud, not really something the size of a tank.
Yeah, that's fine. Long time no see. Hope you're well. Yep. And Mrs. Whiskey are both well. Yep, she's good. Crisp, am I talking to a pilot? Yes, I am. He is a pilot. All right, so now we've got weather radar showing some real fun stuff on both our left and our right.
Yes, or pick your path through there appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Or not.
Or avoid it. Yeah, that's another way to go.
I thought you were meaning to avoid it. But you were saying...
Obviously, yeah. You don't want to go into the pink, I can tell you that much.
That pink stuff is bad stuff, huh?
That's severe turbulence.
Okay.
That'll mess you up something good.
This reminds me of when Josh, Max, Britt, and I were storm dodging in Florida.
Yeah, so I see there's a break there in between the big buildup ahead and the little buildup to your right, so I'd probably go through there. I wouldn't want to try for that little red thinning part. Remember, the radar simulates energy dissipation in the beam, so if the radar beam goes through a lot of buildup, it actually loses energy. So there might be more behind that little thinning portion. It just doesn't show because the beam has been depleted at that point. So you might want to avoid it completely and just take a turn to the right once you get into that little opening there.
Okay.
So now, right now, you'd probably be talking to ADC. In 10 miles, we're looking for 20,
15
30,
right.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's more like 30 right at this point. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to set my new altitude because we need to start a descent. Actually, we can stay up here for a little bit. Field elevation is 1900. Pattern altitude, I mean, is 1900. Yeah, well, yeah, we'll set it now. We'll go down to 4,000. And we'll do a nice, slow, steady 500 feet per minute.
Just be sure to get out of that pink, though.
I noticed you made it so the heading sync button works now instead of having to click the button.
Yeah, I fixed that for you. Don't worry. That's actually been fixed quite a while ago.
Thank you. All right, heading. All right, ATC has given us permission to turn to heading 190. No, 1200.
And if you got to turn more to the right, go ahead. You're as the pilot, as the pilot in command, you are authorized to do anything to assure the safety of the flight.
Yeah, what is the air traffic control center here called? Let's assume that I'm talking to center. Who is this? This is... Oh, I just crossed over from Cleveland to Chicago. That's funny. So if I didn't deviate for weather, I would stay in the Cleveland ARTCC. But since I deviated to the right, I'm now in Chicago ARTCC. That's funny. So Chicago is now handling us, and we're going. We're asking for 10 more to the right.
Yeah, feel free.
Val Dudes is here. Increase the what?
Increase the range. Like, give yourself more strategic view,
Oh.
of the weather. At this point, also you got to watch your torque. Got to plan your descent. Listen to the ATIS. Do your descent checks. Like, there's a lot of work. Yeah.
I should be doing my descent checklist also.
Yeah, probably. The checklist is available on every screen, and you can just, when you hit exit on the screen, on the checklist, it'll return you back to the screen you were at. So you can always just, A/B between checklist and whatever you had looking at there at that time.
Oh, the altimeter is 29902. Interesting. Custom weather, baby. Val Dudes is here. Hello, Val Dudes. Pass it this way. In IRL, you'd stay in contact with the original ARTCC. Do you do the sky high with this one? That would be fun. What's sky high? Are you talking about the charters? All right, altimeter settings checked.
Yeah, Sky has the new PE
okay,
flights, whatever the ratings.
A question. So my outside air temperature, I don't think justifies me putting on like windshield heat or anything like that. Would you agree with that?
It's showing 1 degree C. I would definitely turn on inertial SEP and potentially windshield heat. Yeah.
I didn't notice it was 1. I was just assuming it was August. Okay, de-ice checked. Windshield missing. Oh wait, I got to read the whites are not filler words, people. If heavy precip turned ignition and inert SEP on. So do I turn my ignition on?
Well,
Off of
you're
auto?
not in heavy precip, so it doesn't really matter right now.
Okay.
Normally, I'd turn on below about 5,000 feet AGL. I'd turn on the inertial SEP anyway. Part of the approach checklist, so you're gonna be there looking at that if you need to, but don't worry about it.
Get that table stowed, people. There's the approach checklist. Oh yeah. Okay. I am gonna put my lights on.
Good call. So
One
now
thing that
turn back over
I would
weather
maybe,
radar
yeah, turn back to the radar. Remind me to talk to you about something on the overhead though. All right, exit, back to the radar. Use the inner knob. There we go. Uh-oh. We should probably go 10 to the left. Or 20 to the left. Oh, did Aviator Crafty get a gifted Valdude sub? Ooh, someone gifted Aviator Crafty. He can pass it now. What's going on? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, it's just folks like Stevo make all this picking through storms look so easy because they've done it so many times. But there's a lot of planning, a lot of experience, and a lot of sort of time critical stuff. You got to be able to do stuff quickly here because when you're in a thunderstorm environment, things can go sideways really fast.
Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that we're just going to go just off the right of this cell?
Yeah,
or sorry,
so
just to the left of this cell?
Yeah, there are many recommendations in terms of how you're supposed to behave when you're close to a storm. Normally, they tell you, clear it by more than 5 miles, because what the weather radar is showing you doesn't necessarily show you clear turbulence. It doesn't show you many details of the storm. So, even though it says like you're outside of the green, you can still, as you can see right now, you're in some precip, you're in some turbulence. So, just the fact that the weather radar is not showing anything there doesn't mean necessarily that there's nothing there. You might want to be making sure that you clear the weather by a certain margin. You don't want to be cutting it too close, basically. Although that is again up to experience and up to your personal judgment.
Yeah. Never try and squeeze through the radar views. Yeah. And then I guess there are some pilots that have the NexRad or something like that, and that weather information is it's on delay, I think, because it's just a satellite feed, and weather could change quickly. I'm thinking that this would be pretty, this is real time, but some people have that satellite info coming in.
Yeah, so first of all, pull torque a little bit, but NexRad is basically a data link update from satellite data. It is more large area, but again, you can easily have 5 to 10 minutes delay, which in weather terms can easily mean, miles and miles off from what you're looking at. So NexRad, you got to make sure the airplane TBMs many have a NexRad data link. So what they usually do is they use weather radar for sub 40 miles for sort of the close in, picking their way through a storm, and then they'll use NexRad on the main map page for hundreds of miles ahead to plan a deviation. If there's a big buildup that spans 50 miles and you're still 200 miles away, you just take a little, you take a little bit outside of your path, you request a reroute around that, and you can save yourself a lot of headache when you get close to it, and you're not going to have to, try and pick your way through the storm in a very complicated manner. It doesn't even add track miles to your path anyway, so it's usually better to try and avoid the storm altogether. Which I see you're heading right now into a cell.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get to the airport.
And it's sitting right over the airport?
I'm going to... let me get back to you. Hold on one second. All right. It's not sitting over the airport, so I think we're okay. I'm just going to go ahead and... I think we are going to run into some weather on the approach, but that's okay. We're in the sim. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go down here to procedure. I'm going to select the approach. Let's do the RNAV GPS 28 left into Lansing. Enter, and we'll go via Dutvay. Do we want to fly the course reversal at Dutvay? Yes. Minimums. Well, we won't. We'll do minimums manually. I don't dare look back at this weather now. Oh no. This is bad.
The radar paints 45 degrees either side, so it has a 90-degree cone. Now, normally weather radars in many airliners have a 180-degree cone, so they're able to see much wider. But obviously here the weather radar is not in the nose, so you kind of have a whole airplane to your right side for the weather radar, so it has to basically be limited in terms of cone to about 90. Aviator crafty, not exactly. We're not trying to pretend we are a complete G1000 simulation. We're not a trainer, basically. Between the weather radar is on the left wing. Maybe John Fly can show you.
I'm going direct to Burvey. All right.
Well, I see an airport to our left here anyway. So
Yeah. I'm about to go to the initial one of the approach fixes. Okay, what was I supposed to look out on the wing?
Yeah, just show them the weather radar, the radome.
Oh, okay, yep. There's the dome right there.
It's actually a pretty small antenna. It's maybe about 10 inches across. Folks, I think we've saturated John Fly with tasks because he's quiet. He's rather quiet.
I'm absorbing the awesomeness of this plane, and I mean, obviously you've taught me many things in this plane, and I've learned from others, and I've learned by mistakes and this, that, and the other. But today, I don't know. I think my comprehension level was just a little bit higher. I think the Paul Newman's Keurig coffee triggered a higher level of comprehension. So I think I got about, instead of getting 12% of what you told me, I think I got at least 27.
Yeah, repetition really is the key to learning stuff. So if you flew this again, the same flight over, you'd recognize even more details, and even more details you'd pick up every time you tried it. And so right now would be a good time to probably go ahead and take a look at the approach checklist, and there should be an item there that, I'm not sure if you've completed it already, but there's an item there that talks about the inertial separator. You want to have that open for the approach and
okay,
landing.
All right, so I got that. All right.
Or maybe you should call it the Chicken McNugget catcher or something.
Chicken McNugget. Uh-oh, we're getting some turb now. Some turb. John went chilly getting trained by rush mode. Yeah. Oh, some good raindrops. Oh, we're getting tossed. This is silly chicken time. That's Michigan. Yeah, blame Scotty for this. Whoa, that was a lightning strike. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, just because you're down low doesn't mean you can't stop taking a look at the weather radar.
Mm-hmm.
Now you do want the inertial separator on, so turn that on. That's fine.
Chicken McNuggets. A little bit of turbulence, yeah. This is when the autopilot says, well, I'm going to go into this mess now. I'm going to leave you. Bye-bye. Uh-oh. There we go. Chicken McNuggets.
Yeah, and so when you get into turbulence, actually reducing power and slowing the airplane down is a sensible thing. It reduces the amount of aerodynamic loading on the airframe. For the TBM, I forgot the exact turbulent air penetration speed, but it's somewhere around 175 knots or something like that.
Okay. I got my torque at 37 right now. About 178 knots indicated.
Yeah, I see you're slowly slowing down, so yeah, that's pretty good. It's a good idea not to go too fast through turbulence. You basically want to give yourself buffer. You don't want to overstress the airframe, and you also want to give yourself buffer below and above in terms of drop of airspeed or increase of airspeed. If you all of a sudden get a 30, 40, 50 knot gust, you don't want to all of a sudden find yourself in the red mark for overspeed or down below stall.
Yeah.
And again, these are lessons that have been learned, usually through somebody getting themselves killed.
Why did the plane just suddenly start turning?
You've reached the initial fix, haven't you?
No, I'm not even close to it. It was direct burr. It was direct burr, yay. Oh! This inadvertent turn is brought to you by a dono from Josh.
If faced with a forced landing, fly the thing as far into the crash as possible. In Toto, we trust.
In Toto, we trust, yes. I've got, yeah, this donation is brought to you, this complete change of direction is brought to you by Mr. Gibbs. Thank you, Josh. So, Sasho, it was direct Burye, and it was 20 some odd miles out, and it turned exactly the opposite direction by itself.
Yeah, I'm not controlling the autopilot in GPS mode, so...
No, I don't blame this on your plane. I'm just wondering...
It's entirely laminar memes, so the airplane's doing something you don't want, feel free to take control. Go ahead and
Yeah.
shove it into heading mode, and just take it over where you want it to be.
Yeah. I'm going to try it one more time. The GPS 28 left from Dutve. And let's just see. Fly the course reversal. Yes. Maybe I do have to put my minimums in. No, I don't.
No, minimum shouldn't be required.
I'm going to load that. I'm going to go proc. I'm going to activate the approach. Hopefully this plane goes to... Alright, so it's designated to do a hold at the initial approach fix. Hopefully
Yeah,
this works.
You requested, yeah.
Yeah. But I have no idea why it had a little laminar mem there. Funny, Steve-O just put out a new video flying in bad weather in the TBM.
Oh, there you go. You could call this flight a recreation documentary or something.
Yeah, if I put a YouTube title of tribute to Steve-O, I get a few more hits.
Work that algorithm. Work it.
Yeah. If you're looking for flight suggestions, fly the Zebo 737 with the meme out livery. Yeah. Stolen content, yeah. It would be kind of fun to have him come talk to us, X-Plane. He's very familiar with X-Plane. So it's not out of the realm of possibility of trying to get him into one of our streams. Although there are a lot of imposters. Does anyone know if the G1000 from Laminar is actually going to fly the procedure turn once, or will it stay in the hold? It's called Tough Decisions When Flying Airplanes. Yeah.
It should do it. It should basically only do hold entry and then can proceed out, straight out of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It should. That's what it should do.
You know, I think it does it right. Like Philip actually did pay attention to this, make sure that it's doing it right.
Have you had any conversations with him since Expo?
No.
Oh, I'm surprised that he didn't inquire further about the keyboard screen grab stuff.
Oh, he's doing his own autopilot stuff. I don't know what he's doing working on. He's probably absolutely not interested in anything having to do with that on aircraft.
Once, but possibly wrong teardrop is what B2's saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So every time you fly, like whenever you're not sure, keep an eye on the autopilot. Feel free and be ready to take control. You're the pilot, after all. And you can see on the right-hand yoke how the autopilot's working the controls.
Yeah, it really is working them. And the other thing is, too, is I'm hearing my trim wheel move.
Yeah, it will occasionally whenever it senses it's out of trim.
Wow. I do have a storm clear button here, so if I hit that, the X-plane storm goes away, so that's nice. Where's the beer button?
Oh yeah, we should put a drinks cooler behind the pilot seat, right?
Yes. Stocked full. Actually, you legally can have alcohol in the cabin, which blows my mind, but you can.
Well, you can legally be, well, not legally drunk, but you can have alcohol in your blood and go flying.
Yes, you can. Except if on the airlines.
I don't know how their policies work, to be honest.
Well, I guess it's hours. So that, I guess technically the alcohol could still be in your blood, but it's 24 hours, bottle to throttle, for airline pilots, I think. But the thing is that what I'm saying is that I can't get in the back seat of Josh's car and crack open a beer in the back seat while he's driving, but I can crack open a beer in the back of his Cessna.
You cannot?
No. There's no open container allowed in a vehicle, in an automobile. In America. Well, I guess it's state to state, but I'm thinking most states have the same.
Yeah, freedom. Freedom. You gotta have freedom.
Freedom. Well, when I lived in Germany, and we were driving around from ski resort to ski resort down in Austria, people were cracking open the beers in the back seat, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought we were living on the edge, you know, rebels. No, totally fine. Or how shall we say, not enforced in the ski resort area for the passengers to be consuming.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of this kind of restriction being anywhere in Europe. Like the driver can't, in many places as far as I know, do anything legally other than like drive the car. So including consume any beverages, alcoholic or not, but really nobody's going to give you a bad look if you drink a Coke. But I've never heard of a passenger not being, like, to be honest, I've never heard anybody really drinking very much in a car, but I don't know.
Well,
personally, I wouldn't want people drinking in my car, because if they spilled it, then the car's going to smell. So
yeah,
I guess it's just to make sure that your car stays clean.
D-Money says, kind of makes sense. State laws can mandate ground laws, such as open container. The FAA is the only one that can make / enforce laws in the air. Yeah, federal. Okay, so what you're saying is if I take off from an airport in Utah, it supersedes, now I'm outside of Utah's jurisdiction.
Well,
my
the
PC
FAA
and my brain, how you doing?
The FAA regulates anything that goes on in the public airspace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you clear, probably, I don't know what the rules there are where the national airspace starts, but usually it's like 400 feet. So as soon as you clear 400 feet, bye-bye, state law.
400 feet AGL?
AGL, yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no, as far as I know, there's no clear case law that establishes exactly where sort of ground level starts or where, FAA regulated airspace starts. But, yeah. The extreme boundaries usually don't have to be tested, so there's no clear law.
W28, you're saying that even the driver can drink in their vehicle as long as they're below the blood alcohol limit? Wow. That would not happen here. I'm not so sure I agree with that, to be honest. Because there's a lot of people that refuse the BAC test. And I just don't want people driving out there with alcohol and drinking while they're driving. Even if they're below the limit, I just would rather them not. Uber, well, baby, Lyft.
Yeah, well, for example, where I live, the legal limit is 0. You have to be 0. Nothing. Nada. Not even a drop.
Okay, so here in Utah, I think it used to be 0.08, but I think they dropped it to 0.06. I think. So it used to be I could have 1 or 2 beers per hour and be legal, but now I think it's just 1 beer per hour and be legal, I think. Refusing to blow results in same conviction. Not here. They offer, I think you have to go, then you can do a blood test, and then, yeah. The TEA 1998 limits passengers may not consume in a moving vehicle. Okay, it depends on the state municipality. Okay. The fun conversations that we have. The bottom line is, folks, well, to sum up that whole conversation, I personally think that smartphones are more of a threat than alcohol nowadays with driving. Not just texting, all smartphone usage. Changing your music, watching Twitch, watching YouTube, looking at the Google Maps, whatever. I think that's more dangerous than driving right now. Or more dangerous than drink driving. But both are bad.
Perhaps. I'm not sure.
No,
If you have
100%. That's my
stats on it,
opinion.
then that would kind of clear it out. Yeah, so it's doing a parallel entry.
Yeah, it's doing the parallel entry, yep. Hopefully it turns to the left. So, oh yeah, it says hold parallel. That's nice. I was just going to say that I have actually friends that, no, I don't encourage this, right? But they actually do drive better when they've had alcohol because they're being more cautious, right? I still don't condone it at all, but there's then people that use their smartphones that kill people every day worldwide. Europe's better, though. Europe has all the hands-free laws where they're like, nope, you can't even talk on the phone. You got to have hands-free in Germany, or it's not happening.
Yeah, same here, and I'm not really sure it's really helping all that much, but never mind that. Let's go back to flying the airplane. Are you at the proper altitude for the
Yes.
glide path intercept?
Yes. Well,
So
no.
once you're-
I'm at the top altitude for the whole initial approach fix. So I'm going to set my altitude. Set altitude
check-
2,400.
Altitude 2,400.
So you can check that in the charts.
Yeah, the charts. It's at it's Bury at 2,400, but it's at this initial approach fix at 3,000.
Yeah, so once you're in the hold, you can go ahead and descend to your IAF or wherever basically the hold fix is declared as.
All right, altimeters have been checked. Gauges checked. Fullest tank selected. Inert SEP on. Lights. That was one thing I was going to say earlier. There are some light conditions where it's dark in the cockpit, and I can't tell if my navs and pulse and all that are toggled on or off. It's hard to see in some scenarios.
Yeah, that's kind of screwy with the real airplane. You have to touch the rocker switch to know for sure. Obviously, that is a bit difficult in the simulator.
Yeah. It's doing this procedure turn nicely. He really has, Wolfie. Yep. He's a superstar. I've met him in the real world too, folks. Many of you have. Are you going to come to Orlando?
Hope so, yeah. But still a year away or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, hop back over to your nav map or something and get, starting to... If you're at the altitude for the glide path, you're probably pretty soon going to be able to hit approach mode, and it should guide you down. Oh, you're not yet at the final approach fix. Hang on. Oh yeah, it's going to be final approach fix is the hold fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then you should be able to arm approach, and it should take you down.
I'll wait until I'm between Dutvay and Burye, but I'm gonna. Yeah, we're at good speed. I love the language. Hey Toto, can I has the TBM? Can I has it? You shot 500 par in a golf competition in the real world or on the pooter? All right, there's the turn to Burye. VNAV, there is VNAV functionality. Yep, it's going to do an LPV approach here, if all goes well. Is the cubby hole below the glare shield new? It's been around for a few versions. It's a great place for my Kraken bottle, my flask.
So now you're getting the advisory glide path there showing, so arm the approach and it should
Okay.
take you down.
All right, we're going to click the APR button. Bam, shakalaka. We're going to see here that it's lit up GP/V. Now we're going to manage our speed.
Wolfie, you just got to understand this is not an airliner style VNAV. You have to understand how the Garmin VNAV works. It gives you basically vertical guidance. It will let you, it'll take away all the work for descent planning for you. It'll give you, you know, descent point, time to the top of descent and that kind of stuff. But you have to understand how to program it. It's not like an airliner where you just punch in the path and it does everything for you. You have to give it a little bit more info, but it'll work the way it's supposed to, like in a real Garmin G1000.
Berrier's 4 out. So we'll do gear, flaps, autopilot, disconnect, 200 feet, yaw damper, off.
Yeah, that's your landing checklist. So you do that basically after you're fully stabilized on the approach.
Yeah.
And fully configured for landing.
And it's doing the descent. Look how beautiful this is, folks. Look at that.
Exactly, Wolfie. You would actually, you don't even have to enter that many altitude restrictions. You just give it one just ahead of the airport, basically your last en route portion. Hit enter and it'll compute a descent path for you. Basically, all you have to do is you give it one restriction and it'll know, okay, then I have to descend here in order to hit that restriction. And by the way, John, when in IMC, the recommended, you know, configuration time is 1,000 feet AGL, so you should now be fully configured.
All right, autopilot disconnect, yaw damper coming off, my airplane. Now I can continue to fly through the boxes. It seems like it's a little bit steep here, but there we go. Oh, speed dropping. Add a little power.
You put the yaw damper back on, by the way. Whenever you disconnect the
Oh,
by the button,
yeah,
the yaw
yeah.
damper out automatically. Yeah.
That is good information. Seems like it seems like the LPV got us a little bit high. Yeah, I gotta get down.
No, just follow the boxes and you'll get there. Don't worry about it. It might be there's a displaced threshold or something there.
Think rate. Think rate. Think rate. Think rate.
Oh,
Airspeed.
did not grease that one. That's okay. We made it down in the weather. This is gorgeous. Yes, it is. Yeah, so when I disengaged, he was explaining that to me. When I disengaged the autopilot, it automatically disengaged the yaw damper, and I turned it back on accidentally, so that's good to know for future reference.
Yeah, it doesn't do it when you use the trim to disengage it, so that's why I recommended you always use the button, the correct AP disconnect button. Then it takes out the yaw damper at the same time, so you don't have to worry about it. And don't worry about the landing. The most important part of a landing is that you land on the main wheels.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like normally an LPV brings me in, and I'm not as high as I was there, but
You let the airplane get away a little bit above the path. You have to remember that the path gets fairly strict down low.
Okay. Taxi lights. Parking brake is set for the moment. I will leave the nav lights on, strobe lights off. Yeah, see here I cannot really I can't tell if the strobe lights are on or off. So I'm almost wondering if maybe we can you change it so it's just a little easier to see somehow? I don't know. Cuz right here I cannot see at all. Even if I come in close, I still can't see it.
Yeah, I might have to play around with that. That's a bit difficult because in the real plane you have obviously tactile feedback.
No.
I can sort of see it actually in the video there, but I get what you mean.
So the plane is actually moving in the wind. That's crazy. That's fun. It's just, it's being pushed to the right. That's funny. All right. That was cool. You guys got any questions for Toto Rico? That chart is awesome. Just throwing more after landing checklist. Airframe de-ice switch. Is that the... Oh, that was off anyway. What is the airframe de-ice? Is that on the fuselage?
Airframe de-ice means your inflatable boots.
The boots. Okay.
You don't need those unless you actually have ice buildup on the wings.
Okay, airframe prop de-ice, inertial separator, windshield switch, pitot heat, bleed switch as required, radar on standby.
Inert sep switch on, it says.
No, it doesn't. I guess it does. I was reading it as required below it. You're right, on. Why would you have it on for just a short taxi?
Inertial separator is also your FOD rejection. So if anything,
okay.
anything from the apron, you don't want to be sucking that through the engine. So
okay.
The engine here has so much extra power that you don't have to concern yourself with taking off or landing with the inertial separator on, because even though it decreases, your power by 20%, the airplane has just so much extra power that it still is able to give you 100% torque even with the inertial separator on. So we always keep it on below 3 to 5,000 AGL.
3 to 5,000 AGL, inertial separator on. Okay. Yeah, the SVT, the synthetic vision, is a part of the plane. Will come with it. Yep. No subscription required. Although, if you would like to subscribe to the John Fly channel, I will make sure that your SVT is in tip-top shape. Ooh, my pulse lights are on. That's going to really bug the ground crew.
Yeah, Wolfie. Well, it's just going to come with the airplane, no questions asked.
Oh, Wolfie just subscribed. I got to make sure that his synthetic vision is in tip-top shape. Sell out. Yeah, the one thing with the synthetic vision is that you do need to have either global scenery installed for wherever you're flying, or HD mesh V3 or 4. Will 3 or 4 work?
Any HD mesh. Basically, you need any mesh that includes the digital elevation map as part of the DSF.
No. All right, I'm not going to do the shutdown checklist because I want to do a quick replay and see how badly that landing was. You have HD mesh installed? Yeah. Worldwide or wherever you're going to fly, that's where you need it?
Just wherever you are located at that time. You don't have to have it everywhere.
No. As real as it gets. Thanks for the subscribe, Wolfie. I do appreciate that very much.
So many people might think that we're shipping some sort of terrain database or anything. That's not actually how it works. It is dynamically built directly from your DSF tiles. Whenever you're located at or near the tile, the airplane, while the simulator is running on the background, will extract the digital elevation map directly from the tile and use that for modeling what the terrain looks like. So whatever is loaded in your terrain and what X-Plane is rendering basically is whatever you're going to be able to see on the terrain map, or whatever it's going to use for simulating the weather radar ground returns and that kind of stuff. So that's what it uses. If you don't have a digital elevation map in the DSF, then obviously it's not going to show anything. It's basically going to think that terrain is all flat. Now, so far, the only thing that I understand that does generate DSFs without a terrain, without a DM included, is Ortho for XP. And Ortho for XP, like I've been talking about this with X-Plane, with Laminar, and they're saying that Ortho for XP is going to have to be fixed, because in the future, X-Plane is going to stop accepting DSF tiles without a DEM map inside of them. So
Oh,
Ortho for XP is going to have to fix it.
is it? That's not till like version 12, though, right?
No, I'm not sure. Perhaps.
I can tell you right now, people will stay and they will not upgrade if they lose their ortho.
Well, they got to fix Ortho for XP, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's the band-aid, right? That's the fix. But in the meantime, there will be people that will not fly whatever version introduces that. There's people that it's like ortho's the main reason they come to this sim, besides flight model. No, flight model's the number one reason, but ortho's a huge reason that a lot of people go, I think.
Perhaps. I think you're kind of overestimating how many people are flying with Ortho, because you have it, so you kind of like think just all about it. But for example, I don't, and I don't really care for it.
You
And a
don't
lot
fly
of
with
people don't have
ortho at
hardware
all?
devices. Nothing.
No, you're lying. You do have ortho. You have payware airports that have ortho.
I don't have payware airports.
What? You
No,
do
I
not
never
have...
booked, and I never for any scenery, nothing.
Ah! We're going to have to buy you some scenery.
Now,
That's what we're doing.
I have made airports with orthographic scenery for them.
So you do have ortho photo, but
So-
it's your own. This is
Well, it's
for-
only around the airport, and I don't have global coverage or like large-scale coverage because I don't really care for it all that much.
Because you're more about the systems and that. You don't care about the eye candy as much.
Well, not to mention that, and the fact that my computer is kind of potato, so it's not going to be able to. It's going to basically not able to be able to sustain that amount of VRAM usage.
Why are you not investing some money into upgrading that potato?
I don't want to upgrade the potato. The potato, if I have a mid-range computer, then I know that the software I'm writing as a developer is going to work on mid-range to high-end computers without any issues.
So you're
If I-
sacrificing in the name of others.
Well, that and the fact that I don't really fly the simulator much anymore, right? So when I fly maybe once a month or two, that's about it. For fun.
That's good.
I mean,
I will tell you guys that in order for the synthetic vision to work, all you simply have to do is go into the X-Plane directory, run the X-Plane installer as I'm doing here, and just click on Add Remove Scenery. Nightmare Frame, subbing up.
New stream, who dis?
New stream, who
We
dis?
gotta subscribe.
Nightmare Frame, 16 months in a row. Thank you, Nightmare Frame. I do appreciate the support. So, yeah, you just run the X-Plane installer. Scotty was asking earlier.
Subscribe.
And you just go in here and you say, add or remove scenery. Oh, I'm glad that my product key is not displayed. And then you validate your X-Plane product key, and then it gives you a map of the world, right? And that map of the world, and then you choose which regions you want to install. So if you're flying in the US and Europe, South America, Africa, Australia, wherever, you choose those regions, you let X-Plane install that global scenery, then your synthetic vision is going to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's not even going to overlay your ortho. Ortho is going to be there. We're just going to extract the digital elevation map from the ortho.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I mean from the base layer there underneath.
That's true, B2. You're right, because I'm streaming on the weekdays now. You're totally correct. There's probably a whole new group here that I don't even know. So if you're new to the John Fly channel, raise your hand. Let's single you out. And let's do the shutdown list. Thank you for the subscribe. This shutdown checklist is brought to you by Nightmare Frame. All right, here we go. So park brake is on. Bleed switch is off. Dunsky. Check for cabin depressurization. So I'm going to look here for, there is no pressurization right now, so we're good.
Yeah, 0.0 diff PSI is the key here.
Okay, 0.0 diff. All right.
Yeah, let me just clear up. Some people are asking in the comments, guys, you don't have to uninstall ortho to get synthetic vision.
No.
And it will work in areas with ortho. All you have to do is make sure you have the base terrain underneath, either from X-Plane or from HD Mesh or from any provider that gives a digital elevation map part of it. If you don't have any base layer, basically no X-Plane terrain layer installed underneath your ortho, then it might not work. But if that's the case, all you have to do, as John showed here, go ahead and install that region via the X-Plane installer. Keep your ortho. That's fine. That's going to work fine. It's just that base layer is what the TBM reads to determine terrain shape. Got it? Cool.
Yeah, so in my case, I installed the United States, that global scenery, but we just flew into Lansing, Michigan, where I had full ortho. The ortho is in my custom scenery INI file. It's at the bottom. It's basically, there's nothing in my custom scenery folder that's saying, it's reading the nav data for this area and bringing in the DDS, etc. So, yeah,
Bruce,
I'm not,
because
you're not seeing the global scenery unless I fly outside of my ortho area.
Yeah, Bruce, the only reason why people wouldn't have the base layer is if they just choose not to install it. X-Plane, the installer, when you run it, you don't have to install everything. You can just install whatever region you want, or none even.
And people like me didn't have any base up until a week ago. I had 0 base because I fly with ortho. I have an addiction to ortho. So in my case,
Exactly.
Yeah,
All
right.
And J-Falcon's the same. If you install HD Mesh 4 underneath your ortho, again, same kind of deal.
Yeah.
Works fine.
Yeah. All right. AC to off. Done. Throttle to fly idle for 2 minutes. There's high
You were
idle.
there already. That's for 2 minutes after you basically landed.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the engine's cooled off. So you're already there.
Taxi light off. Throttle cut off. Yep. External light panel, all switches off. Oops. Internal lights off. Aux BP, let me change this. Aux BP fuel switch to off, fuel selector switch to off, and then oxygen switch to off, but that's not implemented yet. Fuel selector switch to manual. We got a subscribe. Karathis gifting the sub to Toto. Toto can rock the TBM emote. Park brake is set. I hate that. Boom. Thank you, Karathis, for gifting a tier 3 sub to Toto Rico.
Oh my.
Yeah, that's a tier 3. You actually can rock the pallet edge emote now. Whoa. That's a serious gift and a nice. Oh, thank you, Karathis. I do appreciate that. Park brake is set, and we're done. So now we're going to come up here and do the crash bar. Press any key for battery power. The shutdown is in 5 minutes. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that. That's a very generous gift. All right. Well, I don't know how. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, no, that doesn't make sense. I took off, Sasho. I took off in Traverse City, Michigan, in one livery, and I landed in a different livery. How did that happen?
That was one very quick repaint.
Because I take off with that brown livery.
Possibly. So when you mess around with the fuel state, using the X-Plane payload window, not the one that we have in custom stuff, then X-Plane sometimes, just for whatever reason, it just switches to livery because it just feels like it.
It just because it wants to. It was an intense storm, just ripped off more recent paint. Yeah, the turbulence stripped the paint. Yeah. That's funny stuff.
Bruce, yeah, we're gonna have pilot and passenger models at some point once we basically get the interior down for like the basic model. I mean, maybe John Fly can show you the payload manager already has, like, it understands where people are sitting and how much they're weighing and whether they're a guy or a girl. So at this point, it's really just a matter of making sure that we have the models in there.
Payload manager. Is this one scalable? No. Yes. So there's the payload and balance schedule. You can. What's interesting though is when I click
on the fuselage, it'll open it up.
When you click on the fuselage?
Yeah, on the fuselage there, right in the center of the fuselage.
Oh, there. Okay. I wanted to go back for a second though. So if I go to here, you've got kilograms and pounds toggle up here, but yet this is. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So if I switch this to pounds, then that's going to give... Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
No, pounds is for... Gallons is volume. Pounds is
for
mass.
Yeah. No, I was just saying...
Only calibrated in gallons.
I was looking for where the pounds or kilos would be shown, and it was down here on the right. So there's the co-pilot. Row 2 has someone that's small. Row 2 left has someone who's a little bit bigger. Aft cargo has got golf clubs in it. And there's our CG.
You can actually tip the airplane on the back on its back if you put in too many golf clubs in the back.
Oh, it'll animate, just boom, tipped over.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It changes the CG in real time, so yeah.
All right, well,
so
let's test that theory.
Just
I'm just going to put in 1,500 golf balls, which is what I need in order to complete some courses. Too many golf balls.
Start yelling at you at the top of the screen about stopping to add weight.
This is a way to clean the undercarriage though of the cowling.
Yeah, well, you might have to straighten the fuselage back up.
Epically epic. You got to understand, 4 people's golf clubs, I think, is going to be 100 pounds. 4 sets of golf. What is a typical 1 set of golf clubs? I think 4 golf clubs will be running 100 pounds. Yeah, there's V1 rotate. Yeah. So if we bring the cargo back to a normal 4-person golf club situation, any chance of being able to manually enter in the pounds, or do we have to use the up-down arrow?
Just use the up-down arrow for now. Like, you can randomize payload if you want to as well. There's like a bunch of presets.
Okay. Randomize. I'd have to reload the aircraft for it to get off of its
No,
tail.
you don't have to reload the airplane. All you have to do is go in the front cargo section, just put a bunch of weight in there, and it'll fall back down onto its nose. So you basically have to get the CG again ahead of the wheelbase there.
I don't think you can fit 120 into the front cargo unless they're bowling balls, but
Well, just blocks of lead or
I guess
like
the lightsaber could weigh a lot.
just make sure you've emptied the tail.
Well, I need to have a little bit in the tail. It's only 11 pounds. Yeah, it doesn't like. Oh, there it goes. Shock test. Needs a PC-12 for bags and beers. Yeah. Yeah. Imagine that life, right? If we just fly around golfing and simming and streaming and 30-pound. Socrates says 30 pounds of bag. So yeah, so that's 120 pounds for 4 golf bags. Yeah. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. I think it is time for me to go prepare for this afternoon's events. So Toto, Rico, Sasha, thank you for helping me today.
Thanks for having me on.
I look forward to learning more from you, and congratulations so far on an amazing aircraft.
Thank you. Hope you guys are going to like it.
You guys also, if you want to watch Toto Rico, he live streams the development on occasion, and so I'll give you a link here. There's Toto Rico, and give him a follow right now. It's fun stuff, but be prepared to well, your mind will burn calories when you listen to all the great information too. But thank you, Sasha. We'll catch you soon. See you in the Discords and the Twitch chats.
Yeah. Bye, folks.
Let's go see what this gentleman's doing. Anyone else streaming the TBM900? I don't know. Maybe. I'll probably stream tomorrow, guys. But I don't know what I'll be streaming or when. I think it'll be in the midday, probably. So hope to catch you guys on the Discord in the meantime. Thanks for joining me. You guys are awesome. Love you all. Thanks for the subscribes, the donations, the follows, the chat participation. You guys are great. See ya. Snacker!
Yep, I have flown to NDPC.